I'm gonna leave you alive, so he can watch you die.
The medics have stabilized his condition. He will be okay.
In Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Black Manta returns to get revenge on Aquaman for killing his dad. Not by simply getting revenge on Aquaman, but by stealing dangerous Atlantean chemicals to release them into the air to cause a global meltdown to reawaken this ancient evil to take over the world. So, to put a stop to that, Aquaman must unite the greatest powers of the seas, his kingdom's armies, his imprisoned brother, as well as whales capable of destroying indestructible submarines by speaking at them. And the best way to describe this movie is to say that it might be the most CGI-reliant blockbuster ever made. Pretty much in every scene there's something computer-generated put there to get your dopamine running. Whether it's an ocean monster, or an ocean marketplace, or an underwater highway chase, or a funny octopus, or desert monsters you can ride around. Shark soldiers, fish musicians, a mutated jungle full of steroid creatures, tentacle machines, computer-animated fights, elemental manipulation of baby pee. They got it all. I mean, hell, even the CEO of Warner Brothers makes a digitized appearance.
Is no longer on the market. Not for sale at any price.
The weird thing is that a lot of that stuff is pretty well done. Like, we're used to criticizing the excess of CGI in modern blockbusters, but here, at times, it can even be impressive, especially with the underwater cinematography. Maybe it's because the bar isn't very high right now, but fair enough. And when you combine impressive computer visuals with a director who's able to find interesting shots, as well as a main relationship that's fun to follow, you should get a movie that's adequate. The problem is that Aquaman 2 is not just the movie, but the final movie, the conclusion to the decade-long DCEU. And as a conclusion, as a final installment, it fails big time. If Return of the King is the top, then The Lost Kingdom is the ocean floor. See, when you're the finale or a sequel, the thing you must do is utilize the past to feel bigger than the past. Not necessarily to be bigger, but to feel bigger. Or else you won't come across as a final step over the finish, but more so a drunken stumble overboard. And the way for a movie to feel bigger is to follow that Daft Punk song. You gotta be faster, you gotta be harder, you gotta be stronger.
Better! I am better!
None of which applies to this movie. And so today, let's dive into that, into the topic of how a finale can and should use the past to achieve new heights, and how exactly Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom failed at that. Not only to learn about the topic, but also to give critique to Warner's, which has deteriorated into the worst studio in Hollywood. Mostly thanks to its new CEO's big brain ideas, including tossing away completed movies like the Batgirl and... what was the other one? One sec, what was the other big movie? Yeah, the Coyote Roadrunner movie, which was fully completed and then just locked away because the CEO wanted to... let me quote it exactly. My YouTube tabs, writing tabs, here, my article tabs. Right, the CEO wanted a tax write-off. A movie studio that doesn't release movies. What a business. So for you, Warner Brothers of today, I have just one thing to say. Oh, and if you're wondering what this is, it's my desktop browser, Opera. It has a built-in AI called Aria that you can ask questions without having to click away to find the answers. It has a feature called Tab Islands where you can organize your tabs into neat groups and then collapse and expand them when needed to avoid clutter. Opera has all these tools and more because, unlike Aquaman 2, its mission is to be faster and better and more convenient than all the basic browsers before it.
I still feel like I gotta do more, alright? Let's go.
And you can see for yourself by downloading Opera for free with the link below. You'll also help my channel. So yeah, that was an ad.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Firstly, a conclusion can and should build upon the momentum from before to achieve another gear of speed, which this movie doesn't do because it starts moving from zero. If you look at the opening, for example, you can notice that everything's been reset. Aquaman is living a new daily life as the king of the seas and as a father on land. Nothing is going on, nothing's in progress. He just talks about his daily life as he lives it.
It's just meetings all day and politics. I'm so bored I don't even know which end of the Brine King I'm supposed to...
Same on the villain side, where Black Manta is looking for Atlantean items to repair his supersuit, but with no tangible current progress.
Like he's led us on another wild goose chase.
There's a scene of him staring at his broken suit, a scene of scientists in the Arctic, a scene of the scientists falling into ice and being attacked by a tentacle. Then more scenes of Manta arriving and diving down and being attacked by tentacles and then stumbling across this dark trident that there's been no mention of so far.
What is this place?
And then there's a 5-month time jump because of course there is.
Nice.
The first act is not long, yet it feels insanely lengthy because there's no momentum. Aquaman is barely in the first act because there's nothing there for him to do, not until the break into the second act. And while accelerating from zero is okay for movie number 1, not so much for the movie that's supposed to drive on a higher gear than all the movies before. Imagine if Return of the King opened not in motion, but rather with a return to a stale norm. Everybody has settled down for the moment until Sauron does something new, and then we're like, oh right, I guess we better go destroy the ring. It's a very different example, yes, but just imagine the loss of momentum if the things from before were not in progress. How much slower it would feel.
You have come here for information. I have some for you.
It would feel like going from Formula 2 back to go-karting, which isn't what you want. You want progression for the speed from before, like how The Dark Knight opens with Batman having put Gotham's criminals on panic mode and in desperate need of a solution.
Assuming Batman left anyone to buy from.
And the problem with this movie is that it's a downgrade of speed. It forgets past momentum in favor of building whole new momentum from scratch. Black Manta has a pre-existing urgent personal revenge quest against Aquaman, yet it's thrown away. At first, he wants to fix his suit to kill Aquaman.
Every day I don't fix my power suit is another day Aquaman gets to live.
But then he stumbles upon something else and starts doing something else. Manta is no longer driven by that urgent hatred toward Aquaman. Turns out he's no longer driving at all because the Dark Trident is poisoning his mind, not influencing his mind and boosting his drive like in Shang-Chi. No, it's a whole other never-before-seen character taking over his mind and body to conquer the world.
You wear my brother's armor and wield his trident. But you're wrong.
Same with Orm, who has a pre-existing rivalry with Aquaman. It's not a real thing here. He's not a real rival. He doesn't have plans to steal the crown back from Aquaman. He's not betraying or doing anything against Aquaman. He just kinda bickers with him as they go along.
You stupid!
They're not.
All there is one poorly made red herring at the end that doesn't even involve Aquaman, after which there's more Trident mind manipulation.
Certainly an improvement. Atlantean body.
And again, when you're a sequel, and especially the conclusion, you don't afford this. You don't afford a downgrade in momentum. Go-karting can feel like a rush, but not when you go back to it after a supercar race. And it is sad to see, because the fix could have been as simple as cutting differently. Instead of opening with Aquaman going about his new daily life with nothing happening, instead of opening with Manta having no specific plan to get revenge on Aquaman, open with the motion from before. Open with the scene of Manta diving down to look for the Dark Trident guarded by the water monster, a trident that you establish him to have been looking for specifically as the way to overpower Aquaman and the trident he found in the first movie. And then cut to Aquaman living his new life while also having to deal with an ongoing problem like Manta raiding forbidden Atlantean areas or something. Something meaningful and relevant to the plot that requires action, like maybe involving the surface world conflict from last time, which is currently irrelevant until the end.
I am Aquaman.
Just maintain your speed, because speed is relative. If you ain't faster than before, you're slower. And if you're slower, it doesn't feel like a finish to a race, but more so, an extra lap. Secondly, a conclusion can and should play on a harder level in terms of emotion and challenges and stakes and everything, which this movie does not do. It hits way less all across the board. The obvious example of this is the incredibly light tone that makes the pre-existing emotional side feel shrunken. Yeah, everyday life as the King of Atlantis is pretty okay, and it means dealing with stuff like out-of-control baby pee. Yeah, we are rivals with a heavy past, but we're kinda already over it. Yeah, you killed my dad and I've dedicated my whole life for vengeance, but that doesn't mean I can't burn you with a well-placed zinger.
You can't leave him like this! First you steal your brother's throne, then you steal his woman? Aquaman. Shame on you.
To be clear, this movie is meant to be fun, and there's no issue with that. The issue arises, however, when the fun strips everything down emotionally. It's difficult to take Orm's possible return to his evil form seriously when, all throughout this movie, the image of that form has been stained, whether it's by feeding him cockroaches or just making a mockery of him. Like, I just don't believe that this guy could re-release his dark roots. A conclusion can be fun, but it can't be so funny and unserious that all the pre-built emotion turns insignificant. Emotion from before shouldn't feel less than before.
Either you kill your brother, or you die.
I don't think so, pal.
Another example is the consequential side, which doesn't really exist. The villains attack Atlantis with a new superweapon, yet all they do with it is make Aquaman's mom black out. Black Manta attacks Aquaman's wife with a hateful passion, yet all the damage he does to her is a mark on her skin that is fully healed the next time we see her. Manta goes to kill Aquaman's dad the way Aquaman killed his dad,
So he can watch you die.
yet he can't even pull that off.
He will be okay.
There are no real consequences in this movie. You never feel like something bad and permanent might actually happen. And while I don't mean that all primary characters and the baby should die, a conclusion must carry the feeling that they might. It has to feel like we're in the endgame now, that the chips are bigger than ever before, that we're playing for all the marbles. And this just isn't that. It's less. Another example of the lessening impact is that all the challenges are super easy. Aquaman goes to free Orm from a desert prison, and he just does it. He's now there in the prison with his invisible suit, and now he's got Orm, and now they ride out, and now they're out. Aquaman goes to get the intel from the Warner Brothers CEO, and he just does it. He easily beats some guys up and makes him tell him what he needs to know.
Cold Devil's Deep.
Aquaman and Orm go to infiltrate the villain's base that... oh, they already did it. They're in. To be fair, I'm not saying that there are no entertaining obstacles in the movie, because there are, but I am saying that as a whole, it feels like the difficulty level has gone down. We should have climbed up to veteran, yet we dropped down to recruit. There's not a single scene in the movie where you feel like, oh god, this time the heroes might not actually make it through what's ahead. No, nothing is harder than it has been before. No matter how big and buff obstacles might look on screen, they don't feel that way in practice.
It's about drive, it's about power. We stay hungry, we do.
The point is that a conclusion must hit harder than anything that has hit before, which means cranking up the volume. Difficulty, emotion, stakes, threat, consequences, everything must be on another level. Because if you're not more, you're less. And if you're less, you're not a climax everything is built up to, but more so a little side trip epilogue after the fact.
I have waited countless centuries in the dark for this moment.
Thirdly, a conclusion can and should grow the elements of the past to reach a new tier of strength, a new power tier of content, which this movie, of course, doesn't do. To be clear, there are many new elements here. You do get a bunch of stuff that you haven't gotten earlier. Black Manta has a dark trident now, which makes him different from before. There's a cursed kingdom of monsters hidden away by the old King of Atlantis, which is a threat different from before. There's an undead kraken, there's an invasion into Atlantis which hasn't happened in a million years. Like, on the surface, or I guess in the depths, we should be on uncharted power territory.
No king has allowed the great city wall to be breached in 100 generations.
It just got real.
The issue is that these new elements are not propped up against past elements to make them appear to belong to another, more intense tier. Yes, Manta has the Dark Trident, but it's never built upon the Golden Trident that Aquaman found in the first movie. There's no scene early on where the tridents properly clash, no scene where the Dark Trident breaks the Golden one in half or something, nothing to indicate that it's a higher tier. Aquaman doesn't even have his trident for most of the movie, and so when he eventually destroys the Dark Trident with it at the end, the action doesn't really carry any weight, because we're not aware of a difference in trident tier in the first place. Same with the other elements I mentioned. Yes, the undead kraken is cool, but it doesn't really do anything outside of attacking Black Manta's new nameless assistants in a couple early scenes. Even when it reappears at the end, all it does is grab onto the Atlantis general and then get its tentacle chopped off and then disappear. The Kraken doesn't achieve anything against prior elements or characters to establish itself as the next tier sea creature. I'm pretty sure that it's not even the same tier as the previous sea creature. Yes, the undead army looks menacing and it's all very cool in theory, but again, nothing is done to achieve a comparison against the past. The undead don't really exist until the end, and even then, the army from the first movie apparently manages to put up a fight against them off-screen just fine.
My men and I can deal with these worms.
A fight where all that happens is the same as last time.
My claw got cut off. Again!
In fact, it feels like this monster army is many tiers below the monster army from last time. Yes, Black Manta breaches the walls of Atlantis, which has never happened, but nothing really comes out of it. It leads to nothing except Aquaman's family getting some bruises, which has happened before. And I'm not even so sure that Atlantis has ever been established to be an impenetrable... Wait a minute. Didn't the villain in Justice League zap into Atlantis to get the mother box? As in, breach into Atlantis? So like, what are you waffling about?
The safety and security of Atlantis is a sacred trust. No king has allowed the great city wall to be breached in 100 generations.
100 generations? Really?
My point is that this movie's tier of play is mostly the same or less than before, which is not okay for a new chapter, especially not the final chapter. Oh, we're fighting Black Manta again, except this time it's not really as big of a task as last time. Oh, there's a new ancient Ocean King villain, except this time the final fight against him is way less intense than the last time we fought an Ocean King. Oh, this time Arthur is the King of Atlantis, and if he messes up, he will be stripped of his crown. Okay, so then what? Then he'll be in the exact same position as last time. Overall, there are no new tiers of strength or intensity here, no further lengths for the characters to go to with their actions, no menacing hostiles to loom larger than before, no scary sea monsters to fear more than before, nothing. And for a conclusion, that's unacceptable, because in that case, the very best that your conclusion can ever hope to be, the highest tier of audience reaction it can ever hope to generate is...
Okay.